Hey, good morning. It's Mike, Blackstone Valley Piano and Organ here. What I want to go over is the different keytop materials that are available for piano and organ keyboards. Okay. First, let's go over some terminology. This is a piano keyboard, a grand piano keyboard. It has 88 keys. Okay. 52 white keys, 36 black keys. This is an organ keyboard. It has 61 keys, 36 white keys, 25 sharps or black keys. Now, let's talk about that for a second. This is called a white key, or it can be called an ivory, but basically what it is a natural. And a natural means natural note. Okay, it's an A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it repeats down the keyboard. This is a black key, or an incidental, or an accidental, or a sharp. It's called a sharp because this is an A, this is an A sharp. Okay? Same on the organ keyboard. Okay? This is a key top, this is a key front. The entire thing is a keyboard. This is an individual key stick. This is a key frame. The frame holds all the keys. Okay? The keys are held by pins. There's a pin in the center. There's a pin in the front. Okay? The entire keyboard. This is an action model. Here's a key. There's that pin in the center. There's a pin in the front. When you push down the key, it lifts the back of the key, goes through the action to the hammer. And this metal piece right here represents the string. Okay, that's how piano is played. The white and the black portion of the keys that you see in a piano only go back so far. This is called the playing portion of the key. When you open the lid of a piano, you'll only see, that much of the keys. But that's basically all that's covered as well. The rest of the key is not covered. So what kind of tops are available? All different colors, and these are plastics. They're acrylic plastics, okay? You might ask yourself, who plays on this material? Lots of people play on this material. We sell it to studios, dance halls, casinos, so there's actually a lot of this out there. Most popular is the black. And what we usually do with the black plastic is we'll white out the sharps. So you'll have a black natural and a white sharp, sort of reverse of what's here. Now when it comes to organ keyboards, you'll get more wood species. Like this is an ebony sharp, this is a rosewood sharp, this is a bone key top. Okay, this is a rosewood natural, a rosewood sharp. This is a maple natural rosewood sharp. This is a beech natural rosewood sharp. And this is a ebony natural with a rosewood sharp. Okay? There are also other things available. Custom stuff. Like this is a rosewood sharp with an ebony cap. This is a rosewood sharp with a bone cap. This is ebony as well, but it's a lighter, browner ebony. Okay, this is Babinga, and this is just a piece of rosewood, a blank, so to speak, that hasn't been shaped yet because we, make the shapes of sharps differently. You can see that sharp is different than that sharp, which is actually different from that sharp. They all have a little bit of a different shape to them. Okay, so what kind of tops are available? There is ivory, there's bone. This is a single piece. This would be a two-piece top, meaning a separate head and a separate tail. Okay, ivory, bone, ivory. This is a newer generation of plastics called mineral plastics. That's a white, that's an ivory color, and that's a still darker ivory color, more of a mature ivory keyboard look. Okay, this material has, I guess, what the manufacturer calls a high mineral content. They won't tell me what the mineral is, but they grind it up, they put it into the material, and it makes the material cool to the touch, and it makes it grip your fingers a little bit like ivory and bone. That's why everyone likes ivory and bone so much, is it grips your fingers. It's cool, and it wicks off moisture. It gives you control of the instrument. Whereas some plastics, during heavy play, this is an acrylic plastic, nice material, but if it gets wet, it gets very slippery. You know, not even wet like rain, I'm talking about just wet from the sweat from your fingers. Okay? The materials also come in different thicknesses. You might ask why everything comes in different thicknesses. If you notice there, these all three are different. The thinnest is 70 thousandths, the next one is 85 thousandths, and the thickest one is 100 thousandths. The reason why is a couple reasons. They don't use ivory anymore on pianos from the factories. And when they did, it was very, very thin. You can see there. Okay, it was only about 40 or 50 thousandths thick versus plastic. Look how thick that is. That's 85 thousandths thick. So basically, if you use a thicker plastic on the naturals, you need to use a taller plastic on the sharps, because there's a relationship between the naturals and the sharps. So a thinner material here on the naturals requires a thinner or sharp that's not as tall. A thicker material on the naturals requires a thicker or taller sharp. You can see that that sharp is taller than that one by about a 1/16 of an inch, which is the difference in the thickness from that natural top to that natural top. So again, the different thicknesses are, one, to maintain the relationships between the naturals and sharps, and two, when you replace a key top, can you see that I cut into that key to put this top on? Okay? If I were to replace this ivory, you can see how thin it is. Okay? There, the lighting's a little better. See how thin that is? If I were to replace it with that thick material there, I would need to cut the difference of the thicknesses out of the wood on this key, so that when I'm done, the thickness of the keys is the same. So if you only had one thickness of keytop material, if you replace the keytop material with a thin piece, or a piece not thick enough, your sharp and your natural would be out of relationship with each other, and your natural would actually start getting smaller in height. And another reason, you could still mention another reason, is that sometimes when people recover keys, we get keys in all the time for repairs. They'll inadvertently cut too much off the top, or when they pull off the tops, they'll take some of the wood underneath the top with it, and they'll cause a lot of damage to the top. So you'll need to cut below the damaged portion to get a flat gluing surface. And if you cut, say, an additional 20 thousandths off the top of the key, well, guess what? You'll need a top 20 thousandths thicker to make up the difference. Again, to maintain the relationship between the naturals and the sharps. Now let's talk about the application of keytops for a second. Keytop application requires quite a bit of skill, equipment, and basically the right glues. You need clamps. They sell these molded tops, which you can buy them in a kit online at Amazon, even eBay and all that. And you know, they claim to be the miracle keytops. You just buy it, $39, and you can replace your own keys. But they don't come with keytops. Well, they come with the keytops, sorry, but they don't come with good instructions. They don't come with clamps. They don't come with the proper glues. So basically, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. Plastic is not porous, So making a glue joint with plastic to wood is one of the hardest glue joints you can make, because if you don't have a material that you can, bite into with the glue, it's a tricky glue joint to make. So they have to be clamped. The surface preparation has to be good on the wood and the keytop material itself. With ivory is semi-translucent, meaning it's like see-through a little bit. If I were to put this ivory right onto this key stick, you can see the key stick is brown. This is the color of the wood. Okay, so that brown would show through that ivory a little bit. So when you're doing any type of ivory repair or replacement, you need to put a linen wafer on there which whitens out the key and makes the ivory appear whiter. Okay? So again, proper preparation. Same thing with the wood. It all has to be prepared well. Some of these exotic woods have oils in them. So you have to be really careful that when you put them on, that you do all your preparation right, so that when the glue dries, they don't just pop off, because there's oil in some of these woods. Okay, one last thing. Replacing keys, the job itself requires the key frame. And the reason is that the keys are all individuals, meaning all these keys are individuals. So, okay, you see that it has a top on it. But when you put them on the frame, they have a relationship to each other, side to side, front to back, and right here to the sharps. That's called the notch. Okay, this is side to side spacing. So if the keys were to be recovered without the frame, you lose this valuable reference for how the keys are going to look after they're recovered. Okay, and I have an example of that. There's a keyboard that someone had put these molded tops on. Okay, and if you look at it quickly, it looks fine. The spacing is acceptable. But it came to us to be recovered, and I don't even think the keys were played, because there is no scratches or anything. They're just all brand new. They look like they were just put on. The problem is that the person that put them on, as you can see, they didn't trim the plastic. So all the keys are hitting each other. Okay? And if you notice here, the notching isn't lined up. And you see there's about maybe a 30-second, a little bit more of space between the sharp and the natural there. If you go down the keyboard, now there's no space. The keys are actually hitting. So if the person that covered these keys had actually had the key frame, they would have noticed that. So that's one of the potential problems of not having a key frame. And it's happened to me as well. I've had people badger me and bully me into covering a keyboard without the frame. And then they called me back and said, that the spacing at the notch here to the natural is not the same all the way down, because you really need that keyframe to reference keys throughout the keyboard to make sure you get your spacing and your notching correct. You can see here that none of this material, see, it hangs over the side of the keys. None of this material has been trimmed. And, you can see it there, that's hanging over a lot. So basically, if this person had the key frame, I'd like to think that some of this stuff wouldn't happen. Maybe it still would. I don't know. Another reason we don't use the molded tops is that if you look at these two keys, that key is significantly wider than that key. Okay? Now, they all look the same because they're all shiny. They all have the same contour. Okay, so the eye is easily fooled. But if you just pull these two keys up, you'll notice that they're over a 1/16 of an inch different in width. Okay? So basically, this molded top, if we were to use these, this top is not as wide as that key. So there would be some of the wooden portion of this key uncovered, because the top we're trying to put on is not as wide as the key. With this key, it's the opposite. This molded top is wider than the key here. So as you can see, this is already molded with all the rounding and everything into it. So we would have to trim this round side, which now makes this round side a square 90-degree. Okay, so they just don't work well, in my opinion. I don't use them for that reason. Okay, so back to the tops we offer. In conclusion, multiple colors, traditional colors, colors for organ keyboards. This would be a plastic to simulate a wood. Same thing with this. This is a black plastic that on an organ keyboard would basically try and simulate ebony. Rosewood, maple, beech, ebony. Okay, these can all be applied to a piano keyboard as well. All right, bone. Bone is very nice. It's an acceptable alternative to ivory, but it is not ivory. It's a little bit more porous, requires a little bit more maintenance, but it's a natural material. Very nice, grips your fingers, cool to the touch, wicks off moisture. Mineral plastic, very popular now. That ivory colored mineral plastic is nearly the same color as ivory itself. It's just beautiful. Okay, very close in color. And this darker mineral plastic is nearly the exact same color as bone. That's why I chose these materials. Okay, acrylic plastic, very popular, the least expensive, still a beautiful material. Okay, now see how shiny that is? Any of these materials on these tops, they can be high gloss, okay, or they can be satin. All right, so we can make these sharps very high gloss, or we can make them flat or satin. It's a lot more work to make them high gloss because the surface to make something high gloss has to be very flat, very smooth, and your preparation has to be perfect. If it's not, then any imperfection will show in the top of the key. If you have any questions, just give us a call.